Hi everyone, welcome, how are you? So I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. So it's about 3.5 years ago, and I'm driving in my car. I'm headed to my job in Manhattan from the lower Hudson Valley, Nyack, New York, and I'm on the West Side Highway. I'm listening to the current events. This is right before the general election between Trump and Hillary Clinton. I'm starting to spin out, and then I hit traffic. So I'm stuck in my car. I'm listening to this news, and something in me just starts to build up, and I become completely overwhelmed, and I'm in this literal and figurative stuckness, a literal and figurative standstill in this traffic. And it wasn't just because of what was on the news. It was because of everything that was going on in my life at that time. I had just gotten out of a long-term partnership. I was a newly single parent. I was caring for my ailing, elderly mother. I was trying to find financial footing. On top of all of that, I had a history of depression and anxiety. Things were building up. I was starting to feel completely alone, isolated. Things were not good. I was headed into kind of a dark place. Add to that my recent re-emerging into my queer identity. I didn't know how to overcome this. So as I'm sitting there in the car, and I'm recognizing all these layers and upon layers of difficulty and grief and stress, I've had it. And I remember in that moment, hands off the wheel as I'm in this traffic, looking up, my body just becoming fully energized from foot to the tips of my fingers. And I said, no, there has to be a way. I will not shut down. There must be a way for me to overcome this and not just spiral downward and become heavier and heavier and more powerless. What if there was a way to take that intense energy, that intense grief, that powerlessness, and turn it into power? What if? I'm in my car, I'm buzzing with energy. Something's happening. I'm listening for the first time to what I really need, to what's really going on in here. This was my first time truly connecting to my inner story space. What if I could become more powerful from this space that I'm in, from owning this story? And then, what if I'm able to take what feels just like a spinning out, complete chaos, overwhelm, and somehow channel it outward to help others in the midst of what was feeling like a really challenging time? Fast forward a few months. Little did I know, I would be right back in that dark place, but it wasn't just me alone. It wasn't just because of my personal difficulties. The community where I lived was deeply affected and grieving, especially the LGBTQ community, the Black community, women. We were truly grieving, freaking out over the election of Trump. You could feel the communal grief. It was palpable. So once again, I was truly overwhelmed. I started to spiral in and down. But something stopped me. I came back, I grounded, and I felt that inner story space, that story that was aching to be heard. And what did I do? I said, no, I will not shut down. There must be a way for us not to shut down. What do we do? What if I took that knowing, that wisdom, that authentic truth, that story that's aching to be heard and believed, and took it out to the streets? Found spaces where people could come together in intimate ways to share their stories. And that's what I did. I started with something called the Women's Storytelling Project, where we did incredible nightly fun events where women got on stage and shared their personal stories. Some of them read, some of them made up on the spot. And we felt connected. We heard each other, we believed each other, and this was something that was starting to empower us, renew us, give us energy, so that we could go back out into the world and help others and do the work that needs to be done. So once again, I connected to this inner story space, this place of authentic truth and knowing, vulnerability. And I went and I shared my story with others who were starting to connect to their stories. And then I developed it further. Let's make workshops. Let's find other spaces and ways that we can bring our stories together and empower one another. So then a little while later, a few more months, and I'm walking down Main Street in Nyack, New York, and I see a for rent sign. It's a narrow storefront space with high ceilings and large windows on the street. And I thought, this could be the physical manifestation of this story work, of this idea of story space from within and how it affects the community. And what I did was I created a community story space, a space that welcomed its doors to everyone to come and share their stories through creativity. And my mission was, we're not going to shut down. Through these stories, through the art we're making, through the exhibitions, through the open mics, through all these amazing things that we can come together and collaborate on, we are helping ourselves to be empowered, and we're helping others. And not long after I opened this space, my mother died. Another moment of the bottom dropping out. I thought, how can I go on? How can I keep doing this? How will I find the energy? I decided to continue to create the space for another year, but from that place of pain and grief and vulnerability. There is a pattern. We've heard this before. So what I did was, every conversation, I told them about my story, the things I've been through, the things I was struggling with, the grief. The grief, though, has transformed me and others in my community. I know it has, from the hundreds of conversations I've had with the people that have walked through those doors. So, what I want to leave you with is, we can get through some very difficult times. We can connect to our inner story that's aching to be heard. We can feel more connected to others, more empowered. We can survive difficult things. We can transform. We can share our stories with others if we learn how to listen to each other, connect with each other in this way. And I leave you with another thought, maybe a dream. maybe a fantasy, I'm not sure. What if we were able to create story spaces on every main street, in every small town in this country? What if each of us were able to connect to that intimate, authentic space and reach out into our communities and build physical spaces to share all of our stories with one another? Thank you so much.